The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland. And I'm just happy to be alive in 2020. It's January 4th, and I'll tell you why I'm happy to be alive. One of my oldest friends in baseball, as it were, Mark Littell, is here. Returning guest, has a podcast on this show. It's all archived on YouTube, and always makes me happy to speak to you, my friend, Mark Littell.
Ralph, it is so good to be back in the swing of things, especially at the first of the year, the new year. Let's wish everybody a happy new year as well.
And a healthy one. You've been struggling last year, and the prognosis is good for this to be a year where you struggle not.
That's right. I'm coming out of the pen, and maybe wrapping it up with three guys real quick, and this bud's for you then.
All right. I'm going to ask you this: when you're pitching back in the day, would you rather get a quick strikeout or a quick ground ball?
I'll actually take the ground ball. I mean, I know I got a strikeout thing, going a little bit with St. Louis, but I hold a strikeout record for relievers over there. It's kind of funny because you see all these big names, of course, in Cardinal history, and then you see Littell all of a sudden, and it was for a single season. But I would much rather have the ground ball, to tell you the truth.
Those records stand up, and what I admire amongst the many things about you, Mark Littell, is that you did it in two leagues. Not very many pitchers. If you look in the record book, not many pitchers, for one reason or another. I think it's adjustment, and I think baseball is all about that. You correct me if I'm wrong. You'd have to adjust to the different umpires, the strike zone, that and the other thing. You had the ability to do that and be effective in two leagues.
Well, that's a great point, because I know adjusting as let's call it a 4A pitcher, you're going back between AAA and the big leagues, and what's going to get you over the hump. And I first started with Kansas City in the American League. The umpires, they get a feel for you, and if you can hang around and have enough patience and not show them up, you're going to be all right if you can handle that. That's part of the maturity level of a pitcher or a hitter, for that fact, a player that wants to stay in the business of baseball. And then when I got traded over to St. Louis, you have a little bit of, a veteran status to a degree, and then, but you're still filling out the league, and you're still filling out the teammates, and then the new ballparks you're getting adjusted into, and also the umpires, as you just said. So they're going to test you and see. I might throw a ball low in the strike zone for a strike, and he might just call it a ball just for the hell of it, just to see what kind of a reaction he's going to get out of me. And so I mean they test you, and but it's interesting business.
Speaking of that, does this new rule that's coming in for the electronic ball and strike zone, as a former pitcher, pitching coach, would you rather see that, or are you going to miss the humanity of the game in terms of jockeying with the umpire, just like you described?
Well, you still got that umpire behind the plate, but he's got a bug in his ear telling him strike or ball, which he's going to, visually with a sign, put his hand out there or brush it away. The other factor is that
if that thing is so wrong in his mind, if what's going in his ear is so wrong, can he overrule? Will he have the ability to overrule it? Or
you know what? I don't know if that's going to be interesting. I don't know if that's going to happen with electronics, but I think if something is obvious to him, he would call timeout and probably go back to the back screen and say, "Hey, this thing's off for some reason."
Okay.
I think he would do it that way, be a little bit more professional, maybe, because it's going to be interesting who gets kicked out. The umpire, he can't argue with a machine. The manager, and or a pitcher or a hitter. That wasn't a strike or that was a strike or whatever. I think that's going to be a little interesting. But this new thread that's coming into the game, it's going to be testy, and you're going to see what the fans are going to be thinking of it real quick, because if that strike zone is set up, and Greg Maddux, a great pitcher that used to get that little bitty corner, and he once he established it and he kept going out just a little bit further, well, that's not going to be called a strike anymore,
right,
because it's not going to show up on the red line or on that laser. So it's just not going to show up, and so pitchers are going to have to pitch differently. They're going to have to throw to the machine or the lasers and put the ball in play a lot quicker. You're seeing a lot of walks last year. I noticed you're seeing a lot of strikeouts, but you're also seeing a lot of walks. You're seeing pitchers overthrow pitches because it's still based on velocity or velo, and it seems like there's less pitching. So you would think with this new machine coming out, and that strike zone is not going to change. It's not going to move. That 17 inches is still going to be stuck in the dirt, and that laser's coming up around the plate. Either you hit it or you don't. There's a yes. It's a yes and a no factor. There's actually probably no gray area here. And the other factor, Ralph, if you look at the players that come up to the plate, let's just say you've got a 5'9", a 5'11", a 6 foot, a 6'2", a 6'6". So that laser, I'm going to think, will adjust to that person's height.
I'm sure it will. I mean,
Pearson
and Frank Howard had two distinctly different strike zones.
Right.
Even back before you pitched.
Right.
Okay.
But here's an interesting factor to roll into it is, are they going to lock those heights in, even though they might crouch down or they might stand up straight, and are they going to lock those plates in? George Foster's hitting, he's 6'2", and all of a sudden you got Pete Rose coming in at 5'10", and, it's going to be locked in for that, who's ever at the plate, and adjusted.
And adjusted
immediately.
From pitch to pitch. I don't know if they have the ability to do
hitter
that.
To hitter.
Hitter to hitter. Nothing wrong. Hey, I want to get back to something you said, because all of us out there, me included, can't have more trouble with the word adjusting in baseball than we would in life. And I want you to tell us how it transcends your ability to adjust under the circumstances of being in a new league, this, that, and the other thing, what we talked about with the umpires. You've gone on in life. How does those skills that you picked up, that you were so good at in baseball, the ability to change,
Right.
It's so important in life. We're both around the same age. We're
right.
seeing that as you go through life. Changes happen. How did it? Give an example of how that ability helped you in other things besides baseball.
Well, that's kind of a toughie, but it's also based on experience. Because I grew up on a farm in a rural area, but I think anybody can adjust and live where they're going to be with the type of people they're surrounded by, and I've always jumped in with 4 feet, no matter where I'm at. I like to meet people. I like to meet real people. I like to hang out. If I'm in a different country, I don't want to go the American plan. I want to see what it's really all about. And people have said that about me too. That why do you go stay in the on the academy of the Royals, for instance, when I was coordinating? I wanted to stay at the academy right there and see what the players were eating. I wanted to see what they were sleeping. I want to see what they were doing. If there was comfort, if there wasn't comfort, the whole 9 yards. And I could have been staying at a pretty nice hotel, and with a casino in it, and with some nice fruity drinks, I guess. But anyway, I chose the other route, and I wanted to see the kids and see what their thoughts were and how they reacted, and see the ladies that cooked the breakfast or the lunch or the dinner at night, and just how they coped. The same thing in Australia. When I was over there, they're having these fires right now. I was in a fire over there during a series. Matter of fact, we were playing a championship game in Sydney, and there was smoke all over the place. I'll never forget that. I mean, we finished the game, but that's nothing really new to Australia. But this one is the worst one they've had. I'm sure.
The number of animals that have.
Oh gosh.
They're losing species. 80,000 animals.
We've lost half a billion animals in this whole thing right now, and the plants, things of that nature. I know in my next book, I've got 5 chapters on different places that I was in Australia for those 4 years when I was coaching, and I was around Steve Irwin even, and I thought that was pretty cool just to sit there and watch him work with crocodiles or snakes or whatever. And I got to him before he was actually big, and he had just married Terry, his wife. She was from Oregon, and he married her in 92, and I went over there in 93, 94. So I actually saw him feed Argo, that big crocodile, for the first time, because I went out to his zoo, which was north of Brisbane, about an hour, and I would just sit there and just admire how he worked with those animals. He was nuts. I liked it, And
well, did he admire your coaching ability and how you worked with players? Because
he wasn't into the baseball thing. The only time you saw Steve Irwin.
He's missing more than Let me tell you.
He knew I was a Yank, though. He said, "Hey, Yank, you know what this is?" I said, "Yeah, I know what that is." He said, "What is that?" I said, "It's the world's most poisonous snake." And he's sitting there holding it. And he said, "You know what this thing can do to you?" And I said, "Tell me." He said, "Well, if this thing bites you, you hadn't got time to call a cab." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Keep holding the thing." So, but interesting. He was really into that.
It shows me you're curious about stuff.
Oh, yes.
And I remember our first meeting when I was the Tops rep in Stockton.
Right.
And I'm this, just a regular guy with a bag full of bubble gum and contracts. And you took as much interest in me as I took in you. We talked, and I've said this on other shows I've done with you. You didn't any way. You just made eye contact, and I felt like I was one of the guys, like a guy you knew.
Well, I try to treat everybody the same. You know, it doesn't matter who they are to me.
I'm just attesting to what you're talking about, that you like to meet people and what have you. I never forgot it. Let me ask you, you mentioned that the Academy, as you know, our mutual friend's late dad, Jimmy Thrift, you call him Thrifty, and I watched him be, I signed him to his Topps contract, and guess who was there that weekend that I was Sid Thrift. And he had nothing to do all day but talk to me about, and this is a guy who discovered the Academy that you're talking about. He was an innovator, went on to be the general manager of the Pirates, hired Leland, and it was back in the Andy Van Slyke, Barry Bonds days. And I got to spend the day with Sid Thrift walking around the ballpark, showing me the different angles that the good scouts trained by a guy like Sid Thrift, would look for ball players and what they could do at different angles and what have you. He was an encyclopedia of scouting. Did you get a chance to know him at the Academy?
Oh yeah, Sid was always making the rounds and talking to players, and he was always busy in his office, but he always made it out to the field out there with the Royals Academy. And even though I stayed in the one in the Dominican, I've stayed in the one with the Royals because that was our home base for spring training. But very innovative. Ewing Kaufman, the owner, they're under their third ownership right now with this new group in their Royals. It's hard to believe that they sold for $1 billion, but I'm sure some changes are going to be made. And they're actually thinking about, I saw the other day, or I saw on Facebook, they were talking about this new ownership, talking about putting that another stadium down in the downtown area because of the many reasons why they think it seems to draw much better in a downtown area stadium.
Look what it did for San Francisco.
Right.
Pittsburgh, Colorado, the whole bunch
St.
of
Louis.
Down. Yes, St. Louis is downtown.
Yeah.
But that's a stadium, that's a fan that I will hate to see go. Absolutely pristine.
The Royals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of history there, and I was fortunate enough to play in that in 1973, its first year, and I was actually fortunate to have pitched a ball game in '72 in the old stadium, in the old municipal stadium, which was closer to the downtown area before they moved it out to the urban area of where it is now, just right off the interstate.
Right.
But it's just it's a magnificent
the last
stadium.
Year of that stadium and the first year.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Sure did.
Pretty
Not
cool.
many guys have done that one.
No.
Yeah.
I think you pitched more in St. Louis than you did in Kansas City.
Right. Yeah.
But the memories, you were a veteran when you first got to St. Louis, a rookie when you first got to Kansas City. So the memories have to be different from that standpoint. Just the years of maturity when you went to St. Louis. What's the most excited you ever were in terms of when you were going to be called up, when you were about to make it? What really pushed your button?
I think the biggest factor was I was like 7 or 8-1 in AAA, and I was just out there pitching and trying to survive, and I didn't know any better because I was only 20. I didn't even think about going to the big leagues. I thought about getting people out. And then all of a sudden, when Harry Malmberg, my AAA manager, announced it after the ball game, that I think we ought to tell everybody that wish Country good luck because he's going to go to the big leagues tomorrow. You know, I thought.
And that's the first you heard it.
That's the first I heard it. He didn't drag me into the office, or he didn't pull me over in the dugout. He said it, you know, after the game. So
in front of everybody.
In front of everybody, right? And that was a pretty neat way of saying it, you know.
Oh yeah. And who was the first person you called?
My parents. Yeah. Okay. My mom, dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
let's remind everybody, your dad was a war hero, and your mom was, if not the first, amongst the first Head Start nurses in the community. And would you elaborate on that? Well, am I right, or?
Yeah, no, she was actually the first Head Start nurse in the state of Missouri, and and I grew up in a poverty area. That was the 6th most poverty-stricken counties in United States, in the Boot Heel area where I grew up. And even though, you know, you've got big farmers and things like that, you've still got a lot of poverty, you know, around there. Right. So it was feast or famine. But you know, somebody had mentioned, you know, he said, your mother could have been the very first actually in the United States because, you know, it was targeted toward the center of the country. And I know the head of her, I guess you might say her boss, was my family doctor, was Dr. Gubin, who was a Jewish guy. He was the only Jewish doctor in a 6-7 county area right there, and he probably delivered more babies. And most people who had their babies delivered right there probably didn't know he's Jewish. I thought that was great.
I'm wondering if the manager you had in AAA has a
he was Jewish.
He was Jewish.
Harry.
I can tell by his name.
That's right. Yeah, Harry Malmberg.
Very interesting. Maybe that's why you
made
eye contact with me. You were the first person in baseball to make eye contact with the Jew boy from Brooklyn.
Well, the reason I made eye contact with you was because my dad was a Marine, and he was out of the Midwest, and if I didn't make eye contact, he probably would have come swooping down at some point and said, "Why didn't you make eye contact with anybody, this person?"
Well,
you know,
that was,
I would have been killed.
You were a gentleman. You were raised properly, and a myriad of experiences and a myriad of talents. Not only were you a pitcher, world-class athlete, let's put it that way, but you coached at a world-class level. How many years? 17 years of coaching, something like that?
I had 18 professionally, and then I had, after I got out of the game, I made the mistake. I shouldn't say it was a mistake, but I worked with amateur kids for about 11 years, and I thought, holy crap, you know, you see these parents, and it's like, whoa, let's rewrite the books. And it's kind of interesting, you know. And I said, I've been out of amateur baseball watching it, you know, for a long time, but I stepped back on the field and I said, oh my gosh, it's amazing how these, and you got a lot of single moms out there. They said, can you tell my son this and this?
And you're also an inventor. Tell us, for those who haven't heard, about Nutty Buddy. How did that get started? And
I was, you know, coaching with the Dodgers, and I was chewing my pitcher's butt out just for fun one day. We were on some downtime, and so I always elaborated on whatever, and I got on the subject of protection of lower extremities, so that I asked, how many of you guys wear a cup? And of course, about half of them raised their hand. I said, that's what I thought. That's what I figured. So I just kind of kept harping and having fun with them. One of the guys in the background has said, hey, country, why don't you just go invent one? And I said, well, screw you. So I said, I think I will. So I went and got in the training room, and I found 2 golf balls and some stuff that was pliable that you put in a hydroculator, and you got to heat it up. And so I molded some stuff and cut it up, and I said, well, this looks like a cup. This is the way it probably should be working. So anyway, I took it out there the next day, and I said, well, here's your cup. And I held it up, and the guy said, that's not bad. Maybe you should patent that thing. I said, nah, they probably got stuff like this. And so about 6 weeks later, I thought about it, and I called the patent lawyer, and he said, well, send her in. So they sent it off to Washington, and they said, there's nothing like this. And I said, so what's that mean? And he said, that means you spend more money. I said, oh, okay.
Now, let me ask you this. How did you learn what a hydroculator was?
The hydroculator.
You must have had some technical experience.
Well, the hydroculator was always in the training room, and they put these things in there that soaked with the heat, and it was moisture. So, but they had this other pliable material that they would make thumb guards and all kinds of weird stuff out of, and it was pliable. And then you put it into hot water, and for about 5 minutes, and all of a sudden you pull it out, and you got about 3 minutes to work with it. So that's what I did. Was I got some of this. It's like plasticity or something of that nature, what they call it. And the trainer gave me some. And
that a common machine in a training room?
Yeah. They got hydroculators. They should still have them. I would think. They got all kinds of new gizmos out there right now, and but it's. So
long story short, not only did you patent it, but it has really become a sensation. Who are some of the teams that have purchased them for the whole team?
The whole team. I haven't had I've had the Angels do it, but the whole team. I've never had a real whole team, but a lot of players use my cup. I know when Molina got hit and he actually lost one. He switched over to mine, and he likes it a lot, I guess.
Isn't that like locking the barn door after the horse goes out? Because you lose one, that's like 50%. That's a high. That's a lot. It doesn't seem just one, but
I know. Well, I've got 5 sizes, which are hammer, boss, hog, trophy, mongo. And then what I didn't want for Molina, though, was I didn't want to have a Han Solo. So whatever. But
now, I won't even ask because I truly don't care which Molina it was. But it was no, we don't have to say. Let people.
Yeah, I mean, it's common knowledge that he knew that. I mean, he did. It's common knowledge. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And then whenever a catcher gets whacked, they always call Nutty Buddy and they say, "Send it over." These guys are using inferior products. I said, "Well, yeah, I need a bucket down there or something." So, whatever.
Now, you would think that being fairly important, and you see it happen all the time. You see guys. I saw catchers throw up. Literally on television.
Right.
But wow.
So
with that in
too.
mind, I'm sure everybody watches baseball tonight that plays baseball. Why wouldn't I would say they should be knocking at the door at this point, because it really is. It's creative, and it's like no other.
Yeah, I know. I've won 5 awards over this. I've won 5 awards over this thing, and I'm an idiot. But it was pretty funny, You sit here and you think about it, and it's just not baseball that purchases Nutty Buddy, because you've got cricket's actually bigger than baseball, and then you've got hockey and lacrosse and actually fencing. The United States Olympic team used that cup.
Oh,
wow. You didn't want those things skewered, like on a doggone charcoal pit or anything. So you go out there, but it's kind of interesting.
No. All right, I have one more question to ask you because I know your time is limited. Hub Kittle was the guru of the St. Louis pitching staff when you got there. Was there any such person with that reputation in the Kansas City organization when you were coming up?
Well, the guy that signed me. Well, the guy that signed me did a pretty good job. Was Gary Blaylock, and he was when they won the series in '85. He was the pitching coach then, and Gary was a pretty tough guy, and he'd been with the Yankees as a scout and also coached over there, not in the major league.
He came up with the Yankees or Kansas City.
He came up with Cardinals for a little bit, and he pitched actually 1 year with the Cardinals, and he did something with the Yankees, but he's got some great stories, and Gary's still alive. He's the same age as Whitey Herzog, and Whitey's 87 or 88, and Gary's right there with him, 87, 88. And, Whitey had a stroke about 3-4 months ago, and I haven't heard too much about him lately, and I need to find out a little bit more how he's, surviving.
Without Whitey Herzog, there would have been no Met championship in 1969. He was the minor league player development guy. He helped so many players develop. He really put the instructional league into service for the Mets.
Yes.
Because he came up under Casey before he went to Washington.
Yes.
And learned an awful lot from Casey Stengel.
Well, he liked Casey. That was his number one, because Whitey told me he wrote my foreword for my first book, and he said I would copy Casey, and think a lot like what he was trying to do. And of course, Casey Stengel's got a style of his own, so good grief. He's a Sharpie. He
was absolutely as sharp as they come. And you mentioned Kansas City, and I can the old story about Casey and Bob Serve sitting on the bench. And it's before a game, and they're just just sitting there watching batting practice and this, that, and the other thing. And Casey says, Mr. Serve, that's what he called. It's almost a sarcastic way of saying stuff. Mr. Serve, he says, I got a surprise for you. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but one of us has been traded to Kansas City. He just sat there for about 10 minutes next to him, or on the same bench. Didn't say anything at all. Just watch him. Mr. Serve. I'm not going to tell you who it is. Let you guess.
But well, that's the way he operated. It's like yogiisms, and you've got Stengel, and they're basically the same animal, and just different clubs.
Absolutely. I wonder how many Stengelisms Joe Garagiola wrote. Probably very few.
I can only imagine.
He wrote a lot of yogiisms, though.
Yep, he sure did.
Did you know him at all? I'm sure you did.
I did. I met him. That's about it. I met Yogi once, and of course, I was playing at the time, and I didn't want to. You don't talk too much to the opposing. And I met Munson in a funny way underneath the stands. We had a rain delay going, and it was in '76 actually, and there's 4 or 5 guys down there on each side, and I just kind of, mingled down there and just kind of traipsed in, and Munson was down there, chewing the fat with everybody, and some of the other guys, and Otis, and there's quite a few guys. And then Munson didn't know me, and this is how he operated. He wanted to get to know me because he knew I was throwing pretty well, and he said, "What makes this guy tick?" And he came out of the woodwork real quick, and he turned to me and he said, "Hey, Country, what do you think about this game tonight? Think we're gonna get rained out?" And I said, "Well, I don't feel like a weatherman right now, Thurm." So, and that's about all I said. So, and he said, and he kind of,
was your interaction?
He kind of punched up his mustache and like that, with his mustache going up, like how he does that, and
right.
And so we kind of left it at that.
Right. I'm sure pitchers didn't, especially relief pitchers, didn't interact really well with batters, and vice versa. Pitchers didn't.
Gibson, was big on not talking to hitters, and when I was a youngster growing up, 180 miles to the south, St. Louis was my team at the time, and so you always heard about Bob Gibson this, Bob Gibson that. Bob Gibson never talks to hitters, hates them, that kind of thing. So I kind of said, hey, why not? Makes sense.
Right.
So
but
follow that rule of thumb.
Beneath it all, though, there's a warm, sensitive guy that I know. So that other thing had to be a big facade. Am I correct?
With who are you talking about? With
Gibson? You, when you being mean.
Oh, right, yeah.
That was a big
well, you put
facade. There anybody?
You put on an act. You put on an act. Right. And you want people to convey. You want to convey to people that, hey, I'm a tough guy. Well, in certain cases, when I go between the lines, I will hit you. Matter of fact, Billy Staple, who's one of the clubhouse guys, he always tells me this because I'm doing some foundation work with Billy right now, and he said, yeah, I'd go over there, to get stuff because we didn't have it on the visitor side, so he'd have to go to the home base. So players, they'd say, hey, well, what's this Littell guy like? Country guy. And he said, he's a crazy son of a bitch. Of course, I didn't know Billy, and I'd do something stupid in there. I'd throw a baseball and hit a wall, with all the players around. And this guy's crazy. You think he'd hit you? Hell yeah, I think he'd hit you. So I wanted to make sure that got to the other locker room.
All right, one more thing. Were you genuinely awed by the Shandings and the Musials of the world?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. Stan Musial was just a class to act, and Red was too, and Red just passed away a couple years ago, I guess, and Stan was back a bit, but
yeah,
those guys were good for baseball. They were good for St. Louis. Yeah.
Yeah. Slowly but surely, we're losing all of these guys, and it's horrible.
Well, Andy Hassler just passed away on Christmas Day, and a teammate of mine when we were in 76, 77 together, and he was a young man at 68.
Yes.
And
yes.
And left-handed pitcher, 6'6". All of a sudden, Andy's not with us. He passed away on Christmas Day. And there's a lot of Don Larson. Yeah, I got a chance to talk to Don Larson about 7-8 months ago on the phone, and I think his wife or caretaker or whatever, I think he was in Idaho, and I actually wanted to interview him. He said, "No, Mark," he says, "I'd rather not do that. I haven't done a radio interview in such a long time, and this and that, because there's a reason." And I remember that. But I did get a chance to talk, and he was nice to me, So I told him about, Whitey, and we were talking about it, and we started, trading off a few stories. And
right.
He said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Well, I grew up on a farm in southeast Missouri," and so that was good, and so, it was good. And it was a good talk.
How close to Alma, or
Alma
Alva.
is on the opposite side. That's where the Boyer family was from.
Right, exactly.
See? And so you got, Cleet and Kenny and the third base, Cloyd, Cleet, Kenny, and might be one more, but there's like 6 or 7 Boyer brothers out there that were running around and shooting squirrels and eating the hell out of everything. But whatever.
I'll tell you, I say this every day to folks, not every day, every conversation about who should be in the Hall of Fame, who shouldn't. I'm not saying he shouldn't be in, but if Ron Santo is in, Kenny Boyer should be.
Yep, Kenny was a player.
Damn good player.
Yep, sure was.
Anyway, country, it's been a pleasure as usual. Thank you for gracing the airways of Comfortably Zoned Radio.
Glad to do it, Ralph. Enjoyed it as usual. Thanks for having me on.
My friend, for as long as I'm around. That's all I ask.
You got it.
All right, my friend. See you soon. Thank you for listening, everybody. We talked about Head Start, Mark and I want you to do us both a real solid, is box up some new or lightly used children's books and take them down to the Head Start program. That would be so nice. Those kids need to become school ready, develop a passion, get a good start in life, develop an imagination, get their noses out of the computers and the hand devices, and read a book. Give them the opportunity. By design, the kids at the Head Start program that will be reading these books, just the way it is, not a right or wrong, they need the help more than anybody else. It's the Head Start program, and it's in every community, and it's no big deal. Just box them up, get a neighborhood thing going, go to your local used bookstores and ask for donations, but take them down whatever community you live, and you'll make Mark and I smile. How about that? Thanks again, Mark.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ralph.
All right. Thank you again, everybody. Adios. The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.